I'll say up front that I came into this as a Persona fan. However, I did my research on SMT before getting into this title, unlike the supposed game journalists out there, and will judge SMT on its own merits as it ought to be. As such, I won't mention Persona at all in this review, except for two things right now for others wanting to make the jump to its progenitor. 1. Most of your knowledge from Persona translates over, such as using weaknesses to get extra actions and fusing demons to make stronger ones. However, some knowledge will also trick you, as affinities and movesets are different between Personas and demons. For example, Pixie isn't an electricity user anymore. 2. SMT is hard. I already knew all of Atlus's titles are made to be difficult, and Persona is actually the outlier in this sense, but even after playing Radiant Historia, I wasn't prepared for how difficult this would be. There's nothing wrong with playing in casual for your first try. You can even play in safety as you learn SMT's intricacies if you want. Buffing and debuffing, for example, are much more important here than in Persona. And now for the review. Shin Megami Tensei 5 is a turn-based RPG set in a post-apocalyptic version of Tokyo, with a bigger emphasis on open-world exploration than the pure dungeon crawling of previous titles. In fact, it really only has 2 proper dungeons, with most of the battles and exploration taking place in the open world itself. Think Dragon Quest XI for an idea of how that works, or Tales of Arise for a more recent example. I really like the sense of freedom, as well as the plentiful side quests available to pick up and complete at any time. Keep in mind that a number of them will likely be too difficult for you to handle right away though, and it may be difficult to wait until you're stronger before coming back to tackle them. And remember to always save. I admit, one of the later maps felt quite frustrating to navigate, and I've seen more than one person ask for help about it online, but thankfully you unlock fast travel points that are spread out evenly enough that revisiting the area is much more comfortable. As I mentioned before, the combat is challenging and you really need to learn to strategize to come out on top, especially with bosses. You can buy spy glasses that reveal all of an enemy's moves and weaknesses, and I suggest taking those into the boss fights, taking a screenshot of the result and using that to build your team for your next attempt because, yes, chances are high that you'll fail on your first attempt and most of these boss fights. Use the opportunity to learn how they fight instead. Your eventual success will feel all the better for it though, so don't worry. The systems may be tricky to learn, but the benefits are worth it for those who put in the effort to master them. For example, learning how to arrange your team to get the most use out of the press turn system and double the number of actions you can take per battle. Sadly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Day 1 DLC here. Day 1 DLC has always rubbed me the wrong way, especially when the price outweighs the content included, with the only pack potentially worth its cost here being the Shin Megami Tensei 3 tie-in. Here too, Atlus provided DLC that increases the spawn of demons that boost your experience in money game. As I said before, SMT is known for its difficulty, but releasing DLC specifically meant to make the game easier does make you wonder if anything was adjusted to make the bonus content a more enticing purchase. I don't have confirmation of this yet, but all of the DLC seems to be baked into the game card already to boot, making this situation especially dubious. The story is par for the course for most SMT titles, which unfortunately makes it quite weak. Shin Megami Tensei has always been about clashing ideologies, namely law, chaos, and a neutral path, with the protagonist choosing which to follow to one of multiple endings, and SMT5 is no different. You're transported to a post-apocalyptic version of Tokyo after leaving school one day, and are thrown into the middle of a war between angels and demons, meeting people who represent one of these 3 mentalities, and choosing whose philosophy you will use to save the world. It's a simple premise that accomplishes what it sets out to do, but those who want a more compelling narrative or something more character-driven are better off looking elsewhere. Choosing which story path to follow is much simpler here than in past entries, but you do receive bonuses if your actions leading up to the ending match the ideology you used to support, so keep that in mind if you're a completionist or want to enjoy the largest amount of New Game Plus perks. I played SMT5 almost entirely docked and it ran as smooth as butter. I've heard of rain drops for some, but unfortunately I had no such issues myself, though my Switch's fan did spin worryingly fast in the early game sessions. It hasn't happened since then, even after I returned to the area to clean up some collectibles and side quests, so maybe that was a one-off. There was also a single instance in my 70 plus hours of playtime where the game lagged before my character used to move, but it was just that one time. I'm only one person though, so I'm not going to say, oh, no one will ever have any major issues because I didn't, or anything conceited like that. All in all, I enjoyed my time with SMT5. As I mentioned earlier, it took me a while to get into the swing of things, but once I did, the game became much more enjoyable, and again, that is most likely just my approach to gaming that caused me issues. And while the main story is quite weak, I did enjoy a number of side quests and the world of SMT5, particularly seeing demons roaming the world like Pokemon and interacting with others, particularly with demons representing other cultures and religions. It reminded me of a cross between Rick Riordan's works and Recreators, strange as that sounds. This is par for the course for SMT though, and as such I would recommend the full series, including spin-offs, to anyone interested in mythology and historical figures for that alone. As a game though, I am happy to give it a 3 out of 4. It's not perfect due to the poor story and the confusing maps later on, not to mention the questionable DLC, but the core gameplay loop and customization is too satisfying to pass up if you're interested in a truly different JRPG to end the year with. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this review. Please let me know what you thought of the game and video in the comments, and consider supporting me by liking and subscribing to boost the channel's reach. Thank you all again, and as always, have a great day.